Hey, Matt here. So what about proxies? I'm forever hearing everything about proxies with Scrapebox. So, why do I need proxies? Well, there's a lot of good reasons why you need proxies. One, when you're scraping URLs, when you're page rank checking, when you're posting to blogs, if you scrape thousands of URLs from Google with your own IP, they're going to ban you. If you scrape PageRank for thousands of URLs, they're going to ban you. If you try to post to thousands of URLs when all the blog admins say spam, 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 Akismet's going to ban you, or some other spam filter is going to ban you. You're going to get banned some way or the other if you don't use proxies. So proxies give you unique IPs so that as you go along, you can check PageRank or you can scrape thousands of URLs or millions of URLs, and you can post to blogs and they don't see you as the IP that is going to get banned and spamming because you're not using your real IP or using proxies. Also, your ISP can ban you. Your internet service provider can ban you for all kinds of reasons. I myself, in fact, one time forgot to check the use proxies box and got a letter from my ISP where someone complained, and they stated that if I kept it up, that I was going to get my internet service canceled, which is never a good thing. So, lots of reasons why you need proxies. There's different types of proxies. There's HTTP proxies and SOCKS proxies. Basically, HTTP proxies proxify, if you will, web traffic. SOCKS proxies proxify basically anything, any program on your computer. So, for all intents and purposes, either will work with Scrapebox. You don't have to have SOCKS proxies. HTTP proxies will work fine with Scrapebox. There's different levels of proxies. There's level 1, level 2, and level 3. Typically, you'll hear level 1 referred to as high anonymous or elite, level 2 as anonymous, and level 3 as transparent. You definitely only want to use level 1 or level 2 proxies. Now, Scrapebox will test for this with its IP test, and it's not going to use a level 3 proxy because what a transparent proxy does is it sets out there, but it passes your IP along. So if you go over to Google and say, all right, I want a million URLs on this, and then use a transparent proxy, it's just Google's going to see your IP anyways, and they're still going to ban your IP. A level 1 or level 2 proxy will actually use its own IP, and that's what Google will see or anything else, and you won't get banned from your IP address. So you definitely want to use level 1 or level 2. When you use SOCKS proxies with Scrapebox, it's important that you have to append the letter S, as in socks, to each proxy. So with an HTTP proxy, you would just use the proxy as it is with the port. With a SOCKS proxy, you have to put the letter S in front of it or it won't work. Formats. I'm forever hearing people, how do you do formats? So some people buy proxies and they need passwords, or if you just get a proxy or whatever, this is the format. Your proxy number, your IP address number rather, your port, your username, and your password. So IP, port, username, password. A lot of times when you buy passwords, you might put in whatever username you want and then whatever password it generates, whatever. But this is the format to use. Won't proxies slow my posting down? Well, maybe. If you're using public proxies that everybody else is using, it's likely that it will slow your posting down, but it's going to increase your effectiveness. Again, if you're using your own IP, all these spam filters are going to pick it up and they're just going to ban you before you even have a chance. Whereas if you use proxies, there's a much less likely chance of this happening, and you're more likely to get your comment accepted. If you're checking PageRank, you're not going to get banned and you can get farther. Like if I use my own IP, I can check right around 4,000 PageRank on 4,000 URLs and then Google bans me. If I use proxies, however, I can check into the hundreds of thousands of URLs for PageRank with no issue. Same thing on scraping. I can scrape like 100 and some thousand URLs before Google bans me with my own IP, but it's in 10 million plus I've scraped with proxies. So definitely need to use proxies long term. It's actually going to save you time, not cost you time. Can I use the proxies that Scrapebox provides? Well, what we're talking about there, if you don't know, is in Scrapebox, if you hit Manage Proxies, right here you can select proxy source, and I'm just going to do one that's easy with not a lot and hit Harvest, and it will bring in proxies for you automatically. And once it brings these proxies in, then you want to, of course, test them. And so we run through here, and it's going to test our proxies for us and see which ones are good and which ones aren't. This particular poll pulled like 185 proxies, and out of that you can see in a very short time frame that I've managed to have a grand total of something like 11, 12 right here passed out of 185, and there's still a few finishing, but and that 14 passed out of 185, and then it's going to IP test these. So the thing about this is these are the same proxies that everybody who has Scrapebox, so think thousands of users, they're all scraping these same proxies, and they're all testing them, and they're all using the same proxies. So any proxies that show up on this list get hammered all the way around. And granted, some people will use them judiciously. However, other people will just hammer away on these things, and proxies die pretty quickly, because when an admin out there who has accidentally set up these proxies in the first place, or set up a proxy and didn't block outside traffic, he sets it up, he doesn't block outside traffic, someone finds it, someone starts using it, they may not notice. But when thousands of people start using it immediately and their network traffic spikes and they can't even use their server because it's overloaded, they're going to investigate, figure out what's going on, and they're going to close down that proxy. So these can still work for things like harvesting and maybe checking PageRank or something like that, but you don't want to use these proxies for posting, because these are too widely used and too many people use them, and within a few hours of them coming out on the list here, they're going to be a Kismet band, because people are just going to go crazy with them. So use those, but you definitely need to come up with your own proxies as well. Can I just reset my modem and change my IP address? Well, if you have a DSL modem or cable modem or whatever, sometimes you can reset them and it'll give you a new IP if you have a dynamic IP service. Sometimes it won't. My ISP, for instance, my IP address is tied to my gateway because of the type of service I have. The only way for me to get a new IP address is to replace the entire gateway, which obviously is not cost effective, nor will my ISP do it. However, it still isn't quite the same thing, because again, we're back to that. You can only scrape so many URLs, so many PageRank checks, post so much before you're going to get banned. It's much easier to just use proxies, and it's really not the same thing, and you really don't want your IP address out there anyways, because again, if they're complaining to your ISP, that's going to come back to you eventually one way or the other. Maybe that's in the form of some hacker that you happen to post to that gets mad and traces down your IP address and hacks your computer. Again, use proxies. It's for your own safety. How to leech your own proxies. There's lots of great resources out there. I just threw up a URL here on tinyurl. Copy it down. This is a link to Black Hat World, and there's a great resource on there by Ape Kill Ape. We're just going to look at that real quick. Right here under proxy leeching by hand. Really great resource. It talks about how you can go through and find proxies by hand. So it basically suggests you go and copy and paste proxies. So here's proxyfire.net is a direct link here to the HTTP area. Let's just click on that. What it's going to do, it's going to kick us over to proxyfire.net, where public forum, people share proxies. On Black Hat World, people share proxies all over the place. So what you would do is, so here's one, 50 anonymous, level 1, level 2. You just click on that and go over here and just copy them all. Just copy, and then go right back over here to Scrapebox, paste them in, and then just hit manage proxies, and then you can test them. There's 80 in here, hit test, and away it runs off with them. So these proxies aren't necessarily ones that are going to be used as much for Scrapebox. Sure, they're going to get used, but some people will use them for mailing, some people use them for Craigslist, some people use them for all kinds of things. So you're not going to have the same effect, and they're not going to get hammered as quickly. So you can go through that whole list there, talks about them, and then you can search around for your own. My best proxies that I leech by hand aren't on this list. They're ones that I found on my own. There's proxy checking to find out your different levels. And Scrapebox has 2 proxy checkers. So why does it have 2 proxy checkers? Well, really, that all boils down to Google. So if we go in here to Scrapebox, under options up here, there's the option to use the new proxy checker or not. If we don't use the new proxy checker and we hit manage proxies, it takes us into the old proxy checker or the original proxy checker, where we have the choice to test IP or not. Always want to do that. But it's automatically, no matter what, going to test for Google. See here it says accessing website. It's trying to access a website, basically Google, and see if it can find Google and access Google servers. Then we know that it's going to work with Google. If it can't, then it's not going to. But say you want to use a proxy for Yahoo or AOL or to check PageRank, maybe. No, PageRank it would be the same thing, but maybe you want to post with the proxy. None of those things matter when it comes to Google. So enter the new proxy checker and you have the option to ignore Google. We can ignore Google right here. And then it doesn't test directly for Google. It'll still test your IP and it'll still test all the other stuff that it needs to test to make sure everything's working correctly. However, you can then use those proxies with everything else. So if you're going to scrape Google for URLs, you don't want to ignore Google because then you're just wasting your time. But if you're not going to scrape Google for URLs and use it for other things, then go ahead and choose to ignore Google. Shawn. A lot of people don't really know much about Shawn or haven't heard anything about it. Again, the tiny URL there will kick us over to another Black Hat world. Ape Kill Ape has a wonderful thread here on Shawn. Really, it's just a proxy checker. I mean, it does other things, but for all intents and purposes, we'll talk about it as a proxy checker. It's a very advanced proxy checker, has a lot of settings, so you might not want to just jump in. You want to probably become comfortable with Scrapebox's proxy checker, but after you really get the hang of things and you want to jump in there, you can throw a whole list into there and it will divide everything out for you into level 1, level 2, the whole 9 yards. So if you come up across dump files where there's like 10,000 proxies in it, it might be better because of your control over connections, number of connections and that sort of thing, to go ahead and check it with Shawn. Or if you want to use them for other things. Just simply that. Read through there and it'll give you the great guide. So, due to the limitations of the length of video that's imposed by YouTube, the original video was longer than would fit in one video. So, I had to break it into 2 parts. So, this is the end of part 1, and you can find part 2 in the same channel on YouTube, Loopline Scrapebox.